In this video, I'm going to deconstruct a very simple yet highly effective time-saving upper body workout. It's going to be beneficial for those of you that want to bulk up but don't necessarily have the time available to spend hours in the gym each and every day of the week. Now, whilst the routine can benefit lifters of any level, this video is predominantly going to be aimed at beginner and intermediates.
You see this microphone I'm waving about in the clips. Well, I didn't actually plug the receiver in, so the audio is coming straight from the camera. Some of the clips at the start of the video I appreciate not the best quality. I've done my best to clean it up, but just thought I'd let you know.
What I'm going to do is break the video down into 3 segments. The first of which I'm going to explain the routine and why I've organised it in the way that I have. The use of supersets, which is the main kind of feature of this routine, the pros and cons of supersets. Then in the second part of the video, I'm going to take a look at these 6 supersets, explain them in detail, the reps and sets, replacements for each exercise, and cues to think about to maximize the effectiveness of each movement. And lastly, how would you fit this particular workout into an overall routine? What would that look like? And if you were to choose to do 2 upper body training sessions in a week, how could you structure that second one? So the main feature of this workout are the supersets, opposing muscle or antagonistic supersets that allow you to essentially train a lot of muscle mass in a short period of time. Think dips and chins, the classic combo, which although it doesn't feature in this particular workout, remains one of the best 2 exercise combo for ultra abbreviated routines. So essentially you're pairing 2 movements that hit opposite musculature or different musculature and training them simultaneously. Unlike the counterpart, same muscle supersets, or what I would call pre-exhaustion, which will allow you to essentially string an isolation with a compound. This will allow you to do 2 compounds back to back. So very, very good for saving time. Now in this particular workout, I've got 6. The first 2 are chest and back. Number 3 is back and delts. 4th and 5th are arms, bis and tris. And the last superset is forearms and abs. So the entire upper body musculature is trained within 6 supersets. Now this workout would take considerably longer. You're looking at probably in excess of 2 hours if I did the amount of sets that I did for those 12 exercises. But by applying the supersets, the opposing muscle supersets to this routine, you can cut that workout down, probably not half, but close to it, at least 2/3 of the length of that workout, what you would do with traditional sets. So it does serve as a very good way for people to get a lot of work in that haven't really got much time. The main benefit of opposing muscle supersets is time saving. The ability to condense your workouts down and ultimately spend less time in the gym, or to fit in more work within the time that you have available. Believe it or not, time availability fluctuates. It's not always going to be constant. And if you want to reach that advanced level of physique development, if you want to become an anointed one, you're going to have to find ways to train around these periods where you don't have much time. And you'll soon realize that your program creation and the style of training you do will be dictated more by the time and day availability over the week than working out your minimal recoverable volume. It's just not real world stuff, guys, unfortunately. It will also allow you to experiment with volume and add in more sets to the given training time you have per session or per week. Let's say, for example, you train 4 days a week for 90 minutes per session. That's a total of 6 hours. And within that week, you've got maybe 48 working sets that you can do spread out over the entire body. 2 sets every 10 minutes as a general rule of thumb, let's say, including, setup, weight changes, warm-ups, that kind of stuff. But you apply this technique to that, and you might be able to add another 12 to 18 sets. So it's nice to know that you have that potential with opposing muscle supersets. That being said, there are some cons. Number 1 is that it is a hard way to train. It's very debilitating. You will incur a lot of fatigue. You'll be out of breath, especially if you're a guy that's perma-bulking, you're out of shape. You are going to be puffing throughout the entirety of these workouts. 2 compounds back to back is no joke. And it's going to, it's going to be hard to recover from. You'll probably find that you'll benefit from this training more after a period of weeks. Once your conditioning increases, your ability to kind of recover more quickly between the exercises that you do, you'll really start to benefit from doing this. But initially, you'll probably find that you'll be kind of quite out of shape and struggling to get through the workouts, especially on that second exercise. And that brings us to the next con, which Initially, at least, you might find that that second exercise takes a little bit of a hit in terms of your potential strength expression because of the fatigue incurred from the first exercise. Even though it's opposing muscles, you might find that you might not even necessarily notice a strength drop, but you'll certainly have to work harder to reach that kind of same level of performance that you would get otherwise. So that's something to be aware of. But again, I think over time these things can improve, and you'll notice that it will affect you less. And ultimately, I think the trade-off is a good one, given that you can potentially fit a little bit more in within the time you have available.
What I'm going to do now, guys, is run through the workout and explain the 6 supersets. To reiterate, this would be ideal for a beginner and intermediate that want to experience the benefits that supersetting allows for, namely squeezing in more work within the time they have available. It's a very simple approach. There's nothing fancy about it. Essentially, it's a push-pull combination, either compound to compound or compound to isolation. Now, however you manage your supersets, it's going to be quite a difficult way of training, at least initially. Fairly debilitating, but it does have its rewards. There's no way that I could have done all of this work with conventional sets. Likely, I would have to have left out maybe 4 or 5 movements before I would have had to have left the gym. So we'll get into the first superset now. First one's an absolute classic, T-bar row and dips, both of which are really good exercises and going to work out a lot of upper body musculature. So for the T-bar, I've chosen the chest supported variant. If you haven't got access to one of these, then just a regular T-bar or regular kind of bent row, something that hits the upper back musculature ideally. Nice and heavy on this for 6 to 8 reps, followed up by dips. Dips are massively underrated. And decline pressing in general, I think, for chest development. If you haven't got access to a machine, use parallel bar dips or some kind of flat or decline press, be it barbell, dumbbell or machine. And again, nice and heavy on this, 6 to 8 reps. If you're struggling to breathe after the chest supported row, switch these 2 round. The only reason I'm starting with back is because it's more of a focus for me at the moment. I absolutely love chin-ups, but I'm plagued by inner elbow pain. Golfer's elbow seems to affect me. And these weren't really much better today. I haven't done them in a long time. If you're like me and you do suffer with inner elbow pain on your chin-ups and curls and what have you, then I'd recommend pull-ups, pronated grip or pronated grip lat pull down, or use the mag grips, which are really going to help out eliminate the worst of that pain. And don't stop the set. There's gains to be had left on the table with these partials on your kind of pull downs and chin-ups. Now on the incline press, working up to a good heavy set of 6 to 8. It's a really good movement and it's going to help develop that kind of slab-like appearance of your chest right up at your clavicles. And where you can't really isolate an area, you can definitely emphasize an area with the chest movements. If you haven't got access to a machine, then just stick to dumbbells or barbell. This next one will give you an opportunity to train delts, but we're going to start off with the low row, one of my favorite back movements. I really enjoy doing it this way with a real big stretch, as you can see here. And I've got crazy DOMs now as I'm doing this voiceover, and I think mostly down to this probably. A lot of weight, good form. It's heavy enough that I can really feel the lats kind of tearing as I go into that stretch, but not too heavy that it becomes kind of overly sloppy. And it'll take some time to get that kind of sweet spot just right. Then you're moving on to the side delt variation, probably 8 to 12 reps on this, slightly higher than the previous exercises. And again, you can use partials on this to kind of maybe squeeze out a few more reps. If you don't have access to this machine, then you can either do single or double arm dumbbell variations, cable variations, or even some upright rows. The next superset is the first of 2 arm combinations. This one we use dumbbells, essentially to lessen the disparity between the 2 sides, which as a beginner seems to be quite considerable. You're going to drop reps on that weaker side, usually the left arm obviously. So the dumbbells allow us to kind of work on that and even it out. Now I actually prefer the feel of the preacher bar on my curls and even a straight bar if my elbows allow. And I think I mentioned in the previous shorts because it fixes the supination. On the dumbbell it tends to be a little bit more rotation. But doing this way you can eliminate that strength difference or certainly improve it. So still train heavy. I'd say good 6 to 8 reps, maybe a little bit more. You don't want to be training this any lighter than your big compounds. That will come maybe on the second session later on. As you can see here, I'm going to help myself out on that weaker arm to match the rep count that I do on my stronger arm. That's a really cool way of doing things. The next superset, we're using the cable and rope attachment. So we're going to do some tricep push downs. There are lots of different ways of performing this, as you'll see if you watch my videos. This is the way that I chose them for this particular session. Really emphasising that squeeze at the bottom, almost kind of bringing the ropes back slightly as opposed to just downwards. This movement makes the bottom portion or the lockout very difficult. So if you haven't got access to cables, what I'd advocate would be maybe dumbbell kickbacks. That's a really good underrated exercise, or maybe bench dips. Again, that would do more or less the same thing. You want to juxtapose the prime movement, the dumbbell overhead extensions, which is generally difficult in the stretch position, and those two work really well together, that combination. Now finish up with a rope curl. Again, elbow kind of has notoriously been uncomfortable with these, so just kind of added these back in. They feel more or less okay. You want to be training both of these movements heavy. If you haven't got access to the cables, again, I'd recommend dumbbell hammer curls. It's pretty standard replacement. And for the last superset, we're training abs and forearms. This is the setup that I'm doing currently for my ab work, but you could just as easily replace this with a regular kind of machine crunch or any body weight ab variation. Incline bench leg raises are really good. Just normal crunches with your feet up, resting on a bench, laying on the floor works super effectively. And you're going to hit some forearm work straight after. So the holy grail of forearm development is your dumbbell or barbell wrist curls, and then reverse curls with a barbell. And that's what I've been doing for years, essentially. It only takes 5 minutes to do. Here we've got the barbell wrist curl variation, and on this going for high reps. So both of these movements, higher reps, the abs, say between sort of 12 and 20 reps, and for these as well, I'd go as high as you can, really. You don't want to be doing any less than 10 reps because it just gets uncomfortable on the wrist. And that's pretty much the session. Everything, in terms of the upper body musculature train there, guys. How can we use this training session within a wider routine? What would it look like? Well, I'm going to offer you 4 solutions. The first of which is very simple: upper, lower, upper, lower. So you have 2 upper body training sessions, this one, and I'm going to give you an idea as to what you can do for the second one in a little bit. Then you have 2 lower body sessions, and you just rotate to form your 4-day-a-week training program. The second option would be upper, lower, upper, and week 2 would be lower, upper, lower. So spreading out if you only wanted the 3 days of training. The third option would be upper, lower, upper as a repeated week. Sometimes you might find that you need to focus a little bit more on upper body. The 2 sessions compared to the 1 session of legs kind of makes sense. Like if you think about it logically, you've got more kind of moving parts, more musculature that needs a little bit more attention. I'm not talking about volume of muscle, just in terms of moving parts. So to spread that out within the 2 sessions sometimes would be a sensible idea. And I do find that natural lifters tend to develop quite big and bulky legs, especially the quads, quite quickly, perhaps more so than their upper body. So food for thought there. And lastly, a really good solution would be to do push-pull legs upper to get that 4th session of the week in. This would round out the week really nicely. You focus on more specific parts on those first kind of 2 or 3 sessions, and then you finish with the upper body session. So that would be another way of doing it. If you wanted 2 upper body workouts within a training cycle or a week, how would you design that second session? What would it look like? Well, I would keep it very simple. What I would do, I would take away the first 2 chest movements and replace them with shoulder exercises, one of which should be a compound, maybe a press, and then maybe an isolation front raise or a side raise or an upright row, something like that, or even a rear delt fly. Then what I will do, I'll take away the shoulder isolation we do during the first session and replace that with a pec isolation. So cable flies, dumbbell flies, that kind of stuff. Then I would take the 2 horizontal back movements you do and replace them with 2 vertical movements. And I'll swap out that 1 vertical movement from the first session and replace it with a horizontal movement. Then I will take the arm work and I would train that with high reps, say 15 to 30 reps, to juxtapose the lower reps you're doing for this first session. And I would find a different ab exercise, and then I would do reverse barbell curl for full forearm development. So 2 very balanced training sessions there. Now, of course, this doesn't take into account muscular imbalances or weaker areas that you're trying to work to build up, but as 2 sessions in general, assuming that you're quite balanced, it's a very effective way of spreading out your upper body work, and will work wonders for you if you can apply your intensity and consistency to it.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. Hopefully you found it both informative and enjoyable. Try out the routine. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. You can message me on social media or via email. Links for both are in the description box. There you'll also find links to my affordable online coaching, my comprehensive Excel tracker, my Mad Cow template, and freebies like my newsletter and 2-day-a-week full body abbreviated routine. So I'm going to put a link up here for my next video, which will be, if you haven't seen it already, 18 tips to help you blast out of the beginner phase. Thanks again and stay strong.